Today we're going to be taking a look at what might be the most overpriced LEGO Star Wars set of all time, that of course being 75413 Republic Juggernaut. This set will be releasing on August 1st with only 813 pieces and a retail price of $160. If you thought the MTT was overpriced, get a load of this guy. Not only is it extremely overpriced, but it's also one of the most controversial sets of recent years as well. One of the reasons being that we finally have Commander Bakara and Galactic Marines now, some minifigures that we have been asking for over a decade at this point. However, they come in a turbo tank, and I don't want to spend too long talking about this, but yes, I personally do think this should have been a UT-AT, but no, it's a turbo tank, which doesn't really make much sense. And recently, LEGO actually came out in a blog post that they did an interview with them, and they basically just said the turbo tank is a popular vehicle, and we threw these minifigures in here because they have been requested for a long time. In other words, they didn't really consider the UT-AT at all. But yeah, at this point, other people have talked about this so much that I don't really care to discuss it anymore. But if you want to know my opinion, I do think it should have been a UT-AT. But that's not even the biggest controversy surrounding this set. The main thing everyone is talking about is that the build is allegedly extremely fragile. If you've watched other people's reviews, they always show it breaking apart in their hands, and this definitely sounds kind of ironic, but that's probably the one thing that I'm most excited for to check out with this set. I've seen everyone else's reviews, but I just want to see for myself how fragile this thing actually is. Anyways though, on the back of the box, you're going to find another render of the set showcasing how it can open up with what looks to be Megiddo as the background. They're clearly not on the bridge as seen in the movie, but there are some bridges in the background here, so I guess this setting is intended to be Megiddo. And then as always, up at the top right, you're gonna have some pictures showcasing the set's play features. Opening up the box and dig again, on the inside you're just gonna find 6 numbered bags. Yes, 6 numbered bags for a $160 set, along with your instruction manual and your sticker sheet inside this paper bag type case, with the sticker sheet having 7 stickers on it and the instruction manual being your very basic modern LEGO instructions, with a huge advertisement at the back of all of the August sets. Taking a look at the 5 actual minifigures that come in this set, first up here we have Commander Bakara. I just want to get him out of the way, and I'm not gonna lie, this is one of the most disappointing clone troopers LEGO has ever made, and it's mainly because of that helmet. I honestly don't know how they messed up the mold on it so bad. The fat cheeks on it look ridiculous. I mean, it looks like freaking Theodore from Alvin and the Chipmunks. I mean, as you can see there, the cheeks clearly bulge out a little bit like he's holding his breath or something, and it just completely ruins the entire look of this helmet. I mean, when you look at the actual source material, his helmet does not look like that on the sides, and almost every custom minifigure company gets his helmet right, but the official LEGO version cannot, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's like, how did they mess up the mold this bad? After literally almost 20 years of us waiting for this figure, getting this is just super underwhelming. And then on top of that, obviously he doesn't have a physical waist cape, which just doubles down on it. The chest printing looks good though, I'm happy with that. The bag printing also looks fine too, and then underneath this helmet you're going to find the typical modern clone trooper head, but man, the helmet itself and the lack of a waist cape is just so disappointing. I mean, I don't even know what else to say. I've never been one to use the term slop trooper, but this is a sloppy clone trooper. Now, the Galactic Marines on the other hand definitely do look a bit better than Bakara. They're in no way perfect, but at the very least, they're a bit more aesthetically pleasing. The main problem on these guys is just the lack of a waist cape. I think the torso prints and even the leg prints look really good too. He just needs a waist cape. The helmet is also solid too. It's definitely not as accurate as it could be. I think the front white section should come down a bit further. And also, technically, these guys' eyes are supposed to be dark green instead of black, which a lot of people have been pointing out recently. However, I personally have to say I don't really care about this, because in most shots of these guys you can't even tell their eyes are dark green, so I don't really care about that. But the waist cape on the other hand is a big issue. LEGO needs to just freaking fix that already. And then on the back side, one thing I need to point out is that his backpack doesn't have a printed tile, and this is honestly crazy because almost every trooper backpack that LEGO makes like this always has this tile printed, whether it be the snowtroopers or the first order snowtroopers or even the heavy troopers in the 501st Specialist Battle Pack. They all have this tile printed. I mean, they can do it in a $20 battle pack, but on this Galactic Marine in a $160 set, they can't print this tile like they have on all the other troopers in the past. I mean, the corner cutting is just so blatantly obvious at this point. But regardless, underneath his backpack, you are going to find some more printing on his backside, and then he as well is going to have the modern clone trooper head. Again, these guys look a lot better than Bakara does. However, there are still just so many inaccuracies and blatant flaws with them. It honestly honestly is just really disappointing. But then lastly here we have Ki-Adi-Mundi, the only figure in this set that has no flaws. This is a new Ki-Adi-Mundi. The last one we got was all the way back in 2018, and it looks really good. It's fairly simple, but I think LEGO did a great job on it. Great printing on the front and the back, and you can also get a good look at that nice headpiece. And if you're wondering, here is what the older one from 2018 looks like next to it. As you can see, they are very similar figures. They just have ever so slightly different printing. And then lastly, you're going to get 3 normal B1 battle droids. Really nothing much to see there. Overall, this minifigure lineup on paper is great. However, executed, it's very sloppy. Especially Bakara. I mean, good lord, I don't understand how they messed up his helmet mold that bad. And again, the Galactic Marines are a bit better. However, they're still missing their waist capes, and they don't have printed tiles on their backpacks. In my opinion, Ki-Adi-Mundi really is the only good figure in this set. Anyways though, now taking a look at the actual build, I'll be the one to stand up and say this. I like how it looks. I'm not saying it's perfect though. There are a lot of problems and inaccuracies with this build. However, purely from an aesthetic standpoint, not thinking about the accuracies, not thinking about the price, not thinking about the minifigures, the build itself does look pretty cool. However, again, that's purely from an aesthetic standpoint because there are a lot of problems with this thing, and I'm going to dive into all of that. But first, I want to talk about the size of this thing, and for $160, yes, it's very small. As you can see me handling it here, it's just a small model. It's definitely the smallest turbo tank LEGO has made. Now it actually is ever so slightly larger than the MTT, which also retails for $160. The MTT is a way more detailed and way more intricate and way more heavily designed build. However, the turbo tank does take up a slightly larger footprint if you were curious about that. But at the same time, this also doesn't really matter because both of these sets are extremely overpriced. It starts to really go downhill when you compare the turbo tank to other $160 sets that are on shelves right now that came out last year and the year before. Here we have it next to the Star Destroyer that released last year that also has a retail price of $160. And as you can tell, the Star Destroyer is significantly larger. It's honestly insane that they cost the same price. Most of the size in this turbo tank is really just empty space because the wheels are so wide. And then here we have it next to the 2022 ATTE, which is also out on shelves right now, and it has a retail price of $140, $20 less than this turbo tank. And as you can tell, it is also quite a bit larger. Definitely not as big as the Star Destroyer, but there is a noticeable size difference here. And it's just crazy because this set costs $20 less. And then when you start looking at the set's price per gram, it goes downhill even further. As you guys know, I have been using price per gram recently as a metric to determine the value of these sets. It's not perfect, however, it is significantly more efficient and way better than price per piece because pieces obviously vary in size pretty drastically, and common sense says that this larger piece is slightly more expensive for LEGO to make than this smaller piece. And again, neither metric is perfect, but price per gram is a lot more consistent and a lot more efficient, so that's why I use it. And historically, for high price playsets like this turbo tank, the average price per gram comes out to about 17 cents, so I consider that to be the bare minimum. And according to the added up weight of the piece inventory on Bricklink, this set's total weight comes out to only 664 grams. So with a $160 retail price, that comes out to a price per gram of 24.1 cents, which is absolutely ridiculous. So now if we take the bare minimum average of 17 cents per gram and apply it to the weight of this set, it comes out to about $110. So that right there tells you that this set is arguably $50 more expensive than it should be. However, like I pointed out in the MTT review, 17 cents per gram is the bare minimum. Jango Fett Slave 1 that's releasing alongside this turbo tank has a price per gram of only 15.6 cents. Take that and apply it to the weight of this set, and it comes out to about $100. And if you're wondering, here are the price per grams of the two sets I compared it to earlier, that being the Star Destroyer and the ATTE, as well as the price per gram of the 2023 Ghost. All three of these sets being significantly better deals. So there you have it. Based on that alone, this set is really about $50 more expensive than it should be, which is just so ridiculous on LEGO's part. It's honestly laughable. And honestly, I'm kind of starting to think that since this set is so overpriced, the original pitch for the design might have been for it to retail for around $120. Let's say LEGO was like, hey, we need a $120 turbo tank, design a turbo tank within those parameters, and that's what the designers did, and they made this set right here. But then after the design process was finalized, LEGO actually might have been like, hey, maybe we can milk some more money out of the fans because it has Galactic Marines, and then that's why it's now $160. I know when you consider the actual design process of these sets, that theory sounds very far-fetched because usually LEGO sets the prices before they design their models. However, again, since the set is so overpriced, that theory starts to make sense. In my personal opinion, I wouldn't recommend paying more than $120 for this set, and even that is pushing it a little. But now that you know that this set is $50 overpriced, price, let's actually take a deep dive into the model itself and see what it has to offer. Again, like I pointed out earlier, I really like how it looks. I mean, I'm not joking about that. I think aesthetically, it looks really good. However, it's not perfect, which I'll get to, but starting off with the wheels, they work pretty much perfectly. They roll very easily. They're super seamless. And when you lean the turbo tank side to side, you can kind of steer the thing, as you can see here, which is an awesome feature. I mean, it's super satisfying when you lean it side to side and the wheels just move on their own. And here's what that wheel mechanism looks like from the bottom if you wanted to see that. Now, in my opinion, the actual wheels themselves do look good as well. Despite them most likely being brick built just to raise the piece count of this set, I think they look good at the very least. And yes, I think even the sand blue looks good too. And it's also actually fairly accurate. If you look at pictures of an actual turbo tank, you can see that in the wheels there are some lighter bluish gray colors. And I'm not gonna lie, I actually have to give props to LEGO here for actually trying to recreate that look. It's not what we're used to, however, I definitely think it's an attempt of accuracy towards the actual source material, and I like how it kind of mixes up the colors a little bit. And then right above the wheels, you're gonna find these pieces angled downwards that are kind of supposed to represent the suspension of the turbo tank. They obviously don't do anything, but they give this area a cool look, which I appreciate. But now moving on to the front of the build, this is where the accuracy starts to go downhill. Specifically with these sand blue circular pieces, they're just not supposed to be sand blue on the actual turbo tank. They're clearly a dark gray color, and I just don't understand how LEGO messed this up. I guess they were trying to match it with the sand blue of the wheels. However, that's not what they needed to do, because while the wheels do have sand blue colors in them, these round pieces on the source material do not, so there's really no reason why they should be this color. Moving on down though, you're going to see the blue transparent window pieces. I've also seen people pointing out how this isn't accurate. However, unlike that circular piece on top, in some pictures these windows actually do appear to be a bluish color, and in other pictures they appear to be a grayish color, which is what we're used to. So I think in this case the color could actually go both ways, and on top of that I actually kind of like the blue look of the windows on here. Oh, and also there's a big sticker on the front right there if you didn't notice that already. From there, this whole entire front section can very easily open up to access a pretty small and basic interior. There's not a whole lot in there, just a chair and a sticker control panel, and I guess you can take one of your Galactic Marines and sit him in here. However, what's ironic is that you have to take his backpack off in order to sit him in this seat. And the reason this is ironic is because one of LEGO's reasons for not giving us physical wastegapes anymore is that they get in the way of sitting figures down. But I guess for some reason right here, this backpack getting in the way doesn't matter. Right behind this front section, you're going to find the Scout Tower, which is just blatantly inaccurate. It's supposed to be a bucket shape like on all the old turbo tanks, but that's not what they did here. And it's just like, I don't understand how they can mess up something so simple like this. And the same thing goes for those round blue pieces on the front. I mean, literally just look at the source material for what you're designing. But no, I guess LEGO can't do that for some reason. Regardless though, you can take one of your Galactic Marines and sit him up here on top of the Scout Tower, and it can move up and down. However, there's nothing that stops it, so if you're not careful, you can just pull it all the way out. However, I actually kind of like this because since the Scout Tower is inaccurate, you can just take it out and display the turbo tank without it. The sides here are very tiled off and have a nice clean look that I appreciate. However, one thing I don't appreciate is the placement of these stud shooters that are supposed to represent the rockets on the side of the turbo tank. If you just look at any picture of the source material, it shows that they're at the top. It's actually kind of crazy. They're placed right at the bottom in the same spot that they should be placed at the top. And I guess you can just take these off if you don't like this. However, that still doesn't excuse LEGO's laziness here. Like the other inaccuracies I've already pointed out, this should have been a super easy fix. I don't know how they messed this up. On the top, there's not much to see, just this tiny little cannon that can rotate around. And then from there, this whole entire front section can very easily open up, and the top pops off too. However, one thing that is super annoying about this is that it's not connected by any studs. It just simply lays on there. And after handling this set quite a bit, I have found this super annoying because it either just falls off very easily, or sometimes when you're putting it back on, it can actually fall inside like this. And it's just really annoying. I mean, I don't understand why this couldn't have just been attached normally with some studs. But then taking a look at the actual interior, there's really not much to see. There's just 4 seats where you can sit your clone troopers, and then this little trench looking area in the middle where you can stand one up. I mean, I think it looks fine. However, compared to previous turbo tanks, it is super lackluster. And then right behind that, there's a little bit more room where you could stand a figure up, I guess. And this can also be accessed by flipping up this top panel right here. But again, it's not much, especially compared to the previous turbo tanks LEGO has made. But then from there, moving on to the backside, it looks alright, I guess. There's just some minimal detail here and there. The sides, however, can not open up. As you can see here, they move a little bit, but that's mainly just to accomplish the shaping of the turbo tank. They can't open up like they do in the front half, which is actually really lame because there's a lot of empty space in here that could have been used for the interior, but no, you can't access it. On the back right here, you're going to find a little stud shooter cannon where you can grab one of your Galactic Marines and sit him back here. And I'm not going to lie, he actually does look pretty cool behind this cannon. However, when you don't have a figure in there, there's literally just an open hole into the inside of the turbo tank, which just doesn't make make any sense. I don't understand why this couldn't have been covered up. From there, the very back side looks fine. There's just some more blue transparent pieces as well as a sticker, and then two very short cannons down here at the bottom. Now, the only way to access this interior back here is just by lifting up this top panel. Like I said, the sides can't fold down and the front can't fold down either, so the access is very limited. However, on the inside, it's very similar to the front. It's just a cockpit with a sticker control panel, really nothing much. And you can grab one of your Galactic Marines, make sure to take off his backpack, and then you can sit him in there, and then obviously close the hatch back up. And that is really all this turbo tank has to offer. However, obviously, there's still one thing we gotta take a look at, and that is if this set is actually fragile. And I'm gonna be 100% honest here, besides this top panel that falls off because it's not connected by any studs, this set did not fall apart in my hands one time. As you can see here, when you pick up the set normally by the back end, which is where the fragile part is, nothing happens. I mean, here you can see I'm even suspending the weight in the fragile area and it's not falling apart. However, the moment you do add a little bit of force, that's when it does start to kind of crumble apart. And this whole back section just breaks off, as you can see here. Again, it doesn't happen when you pick up the set normally. As you can see here, I'm pretty aggressively yanking it up and it's not falling apart. But yeah, the moment you start shaking it a little, that's when it starts to all go downhill and it just crumbles apart in your hands. And despite it not falling apart when you handle it normally, the fact that it does fall apart when you just ever so slightly shake it a little bit is definitely a design flaw. I know most of you guys would not handle the set like this, however, it shouldn't break apart this easily. And the reason it breaks apart is because, as you can see here on the back side, there aren't any Technic pins holding it down. I feel like everyone is kind of just telling you it breaks apart and not actually showing you why it breaks apart. And that's because this back side is held down by only these two columns right here and this plate that goes across. The front columns are held down by two Technic beams, as you can see here, but the back columns are not. And that is what leads to this back section breaking off when you handle it aggressively. I've seen a lot of people speculating recently that LEGO might actually fix this. And to be honest, I don't really know if they're going to do that or not. There have been cases in the past where there have been issues with sets and LEGO has fixed them. The most recent one off the top of my head is the stand on the UCS X-Wing. If any of you guys remember, there was a problem where when you sat the model on the stand, a few pieces on the stand would actually snap off. And then pretty soon after the set's released, they actually fixed that. And I'm pretty sure there were some other cases too, like an issue with the 2002 Jango Fett Slave 1. So again, like I said, LEGO has fixed stuff like this in the past, but with this set, I honestly don't know if they're going to do it or not. I'm just going to have to wait and see. But anyways though, that is the new Clone Turbo Tank, one of the most controversial sets ever released. And yeah, for good reason. There are a lot of problems with this thing, and then the cherry on top is that it's literally $50 overpriced. From the inaccuracies of the build, to the fragility of it, to the sloppy minifigures, there's just a lot of issues. Like I said, from purely an aesthetic standpoint on the outside, not considering the price, not considering the minifigures, not considering the inaccuracies, the set actually does look pretty cool. It is a decent display piece. And also Ki-Adi-Mundi looks good too, but those two things are just not enough to save this set considering all the other things that are wrong with it. The main thing really being the price point. I mean, it is disgustingly overpriced. So because of that, I'm feeling a 4 out of 10 for this set. If you have $160 to spend on a set, please do not get this. Either get the Star Destroyer or the Ghost from 2023. You will be much happier with your purchase with one of those sets and not this one. So let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing. And if you want to check out more videos, you can see on the screen right now.